Hello, this is our fourth program on the issue of deception. No one likes to think they could be deceived. I hate the idea. I want to avoid it. Just makes me cringe. But I have been, maybe more so than I think I have, in lots of areas of my life. Not just philosophy or religion or theology, but political, just about things that are going on, and I'm being taught a lot of times in school or reading in the newspaper. I'm not talking about conspiracy sort of theory and that sort of thing, but I just been led around along a lot of paths that turned out to be false trails and worse, and I succumbed to it, been part of it, and my life has been hurt, impacted as a result, and not just a little bit, I'm afraid, and perhaps that's why I have an interest in doing this little series. I've done a whole book about it, and I'm really not here to promote my book, but it's called Are You Being Duped? And I deal with about 18 different areas, and one of them has to do with the kind of deception I'm talking about now. But let me get into this if I want to make sure that this is the last video. I'm going to give you some more passages in the scripture. Acts chapter 8, verse 9 and 10, it talks about the work of a fellow named Philip, who was one of the early Christians, and he's up in a place called Samaria, up north of Jerusalem area, and he runs into a man by the name of Simon. Here's what it says. But there was a man named Simon who had previously practiced magic in the city and amazed the people of Samaria, saying that he himself was somebody great. And they all paid attention to him, from the least to the greatest, saying, This man is the power of God that is called great. Well, turned out that it was exactly the opposite. And there was a lot of problems with that, and Philip had to deal with it, and you could read about it in Acts chapter 8. So he had a power that was great and amazed everybody, but it was not the power of God. Okay, now we're going to go to 2 Corinthians chapter 4, and I'm having to look this up in my Bible, that kind of in an awkward position on my lap here. Now, here's what Paul writes to the Corinthian church. We're going to have two great passages from Corinthians, 2 Corinthians. Here's what he says, 2 Corinthians chapter 4, beginning at verse 3. And even if our gospel is veiled, it is veiled only to those who are perishing. In their case, the God of this world, now he's referring to Satan there, has blinded the minds of the unbelievers to keep them from seeing the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is the image of God. Now here is the God of this world, Satan, who is blinding the eyes. Blinding the eyes. You know, when you read the account of Adam and Eve in Genesis, that's exactly what happened to both Adam and Eve. They got tricked. They got duped. Okay. Now, you think, how could anybody do that? Well, if Satan would show up in a red outfit with horns, smoke coming out of his ears, with a long red tail, with a pitchfork kind of thing at the end of it, or something like that, however he's portrayed in the cartoons, well, that would be easy. Everybody would get that. Not a problem, But Satan doesn't show up that way. Far from it. And here is one of the most clear depictions of that, also in 2 Corinthians chapter 11, beginning at verse 13. Now, Paul is talking about some people who have come to Corinth, who are upsetting the church and just produced disasters there. And he's talking about them now. It's maybe some of the false Christ sort of thing. Here's what he says, 2 Corinthians 11:13. For such men are false apostles, deceitful workmen, disguising themselves as apostles of Christ. And no wonder, for even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. As an angel of light. So Paul is talking about these false apostles, and he uses as an illustration Satan appearing as an angel of light. How many religions have been started by supposedly angels showing up, or some celestial being and communicating some kind of revelation, giving some kind of prophecy, giving new truths, so-called, which of course is, everything else is wrong and this is the real deal now. Some of the major world religions were founded exactly that way. So here we have this continuing theme that deception is not very easily recognized. Supernatural being appears to you, begins to speak to you. Wow. I could think of, and I'm not going to say it, I can think of 3 or 4, maybe 5 big-time religions that are going on right now that started with some angelic or celestial being showing up and speaking to somebody. 2 Thessalonians 2, a little harder to find, 2 Thessalonians. It's a little book back here. 2 Thessalonians 2 and verse 9. Here's now Paul is talking about toward the end of the age. Here's what he says. The coming of the lawless one by the activity of Satan will, with all power and false signs and wonders, and with all wicked deception, for those who are perishing because they refused to love the truth and so be saved. That again is 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verses 9 and 10. Notice, with all wicked deception. But they come with powerful signs. They're performing miracles. Miracles. I mean, wow. Gotta be God. Not. Does not have to be God. It can be something else. The coming of the lawless one by the activity of Satan. Satan uses ideas and philosophies. He uses our own inner drives against us, but they're false signs and wonders. In 1 Timothy chapter 4, here's what Paul says, 1 Timothy 4:1. Now the Spirit, that would be the Spirit of God, expressly says that in latter times some will depart from the faith by devoting themselves to deceitful spirits and teachings of demons. Now he goes on, and I don't have time to get into it, but here I have given you plenty of biblical material to show that because something is supernatural and miraculous, even involving healing, people get their teeth, their gold, their whatever it is, material dentists use, get turned to gold. People are having experiences where the stigmata, instead of blood, it's showing gold dust. Incredible things. And because they're miracles, people assume they're of the Spirit of God. Not necessarily. These are not. The signs and wonders, they come in times of outpouring of the Spirit, but genuine ones always point to Jesus and nothing else. So there is a spiritual power. We can't explain it all, but we see it. And we need to be on our guard. We need to be warned that deception is possible, and we have to be willing to be honest about what we're hearing and seeing and thinking and committing ourselves to it. We can have no other gods before us, Scripture says. All right, the end of the series of videos. So long.